Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the SARG Superspeedway Series. It's the NS Service playoffs for these drivers. It's race number 3 of 4 as we're getting set up and gridded up for the racing action here. My name is Sam Dyer. With me is Tyler Riggs. Tyler, last week, a lot of carnage came out of the final of that race, and really here, it's kind of a clutch time for some of these drivers.
Yeah, clutch time, you say, for sure. I mean, we're looking at the points right now. Outside of Lucas Cram, everybody's going to need a lot of help. There's just, some gaps going on. Lucas Cram really came up clutch last week, with a huge win and for the most part, a dominant performance. You got guys like Nick Olson, Brandon Hoff kind of had a tough day, and that set him back pretty hard. Now with 2 races to go, Sam, it is pretty much these guys are going to have to put pedal to the metal. You can't worry about making mistakes because there's too much ground to make up.
Yeah, for a lot of these drivers, they're hoping for bad luck for some drivers and good luck for themselves. Wins for some drivers that are looking for it. I mean, you got to think that Colby Wells and also Clint Spillman and Robbie Lyons are kind of in that boat of they need a win here today if they want to even have a chance for next week. As we are at Talladega here today for 75 laps. And the next week for the finale, it's going to be 80 laps at the Legacy Daytona track. So a lot of bumps are going to be seen here for these drivers. But here at Talladega, we've seen a lot of different action throughout the season here at Talladega. We've seen some wild finishes of us finishing with our 3rd attempt at a green-white checker. We've seen drivers go 2 wide and still getting a win, and others seeing the whole entire field in carnage by the end of the day. So a lot to be seen as we have our grid popping up for everyone here. It's going to be Alex Fox, top of the board, with Lucas Cram on his outside for row number 1. Row number 2 is going to be Brandon Hoff and Nick Olson in the 24 machine.
How about Alex Fox? His 5th pole of the season, leads the league, but he is yet to capitalize with the win. May this be the day. You saw it last week. There's going to be guys that obviously aren't in the playoffs at this point. They're still out there racing for W's. I mean, that's what it is at this point, right? You want to be able to finish off a season strong, even if you're not necessarily competing for the title. So they're not afraid to get there and mix it up.
Yeah, and also another thing for these drivers is the fact that there was a major iRacing update for these drivers with the fact that the draft has kind of had a little bit of a change, and also the tires for these drivers.
Yeah, it's going to be – hold on just a second. Go ahead. Excuse me. Whew. It's those sinuses, folks. It is December, and it gets you. But no, it's going to be interesting to see. We talked with Lucas Cram a little bit off air, in that sense, and he's a bit nervous. And I understand why. When you have a big shift like this, all of a sudden you have to relearn everything as you go. So it should make for an interesting first stage.
Like we said, this is the 3rd race. We've already had 2 so far. Nick Olson won the first NS Service playoff race, and then Lucas Cram won last week. Here today, we're excited to see who's going to get the win in the Dega 200 as drivers going through the tri-oval, waiting for the green flag. Green flag out in the air. Alex Fox bringing the way. Lucas Cram on the outside.
And Lucas Cram with a better jump on that restart. We'll see if it pays off, though, because that inside's got some good momentum going off into the corner now with Hoff in the second car in the bottom line.
Yeah, and Hoff's going to be an extremely quick machine in that Grit 9. And you'll also got the one of Darling, who has just been known to be on that inside for most of the first half of the season, and then has kind of been switching up his tactics throughout the season for these drivers. And, for some, it's been stick with your guns, try to get up front as quick as possible, like we're seeing Fox do, and others, it's drift to the back sometimes, see who's going to be your friend. Some drivers, I'm surprised, aren't up front. That's going to be the 15 of Bell, as well as seeing other drivers starting to move forward. But up front, side-by-side action for the lead, but the middle of the pack, 3 wide action.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing early on, Sam, to your point, a lot of guys, we mentioned the big update on the service. It's going to affect strategy a little bit, and you're seeing some guys trying to fill some things out, whether they're playoff or not, of just how to get through this track right now, how to handle the different runs and everything. One competitor that's really going through it, the 41 of Lucas Strayer, playoff contender right now. Not only is this a huge update, he's driving on a controller tonight.
Yeah, a controller is, you're in a really precarious spot. With a controller, you'll have a little bit of a limit on how your car is going to be reacting. 3 wide action as these drivers on the high side. That's going to be Robbie Lyons, Lucas Cram, and Clint Spillman on that high groove, trying to make it work. But that middle lane is looking really well right at the moment, as it's surprising to see how quick they're moving at the moment.
Yeah, how about Brandon Hoff, Nick Olson getting it done there? Dylan Parker, nice. And there goes Olson dropping to the bottom, trying to take advantage of that run. And I'm curious that these guys are three wide as much as they are early on this race.
I think it's also the mixture, like we said, of the new update. The drivers are feeling a lot quicker, and they're going to be trying some bold moves early on to see how does their car react now compared to the way it's been doing all throughout the season. This is a huge update with the drivers carrying a lot more momentum through the corners, and now it's going to allow them to make some bigger and bolder moves than they have previously, as I believe that's going to be the 8 of Rada that's going to be really getting out of shape on the inside, but trying to lead that bottom groove.
Yeah, man, you talk about bold moves. Guys are diving left and right. See Alex Bell dive to there or go up to the top side. They're filling it out. With the way this dropped, you don't an hour of practice beforehand and not a big pack doesn't give you the proper, time to really get used to everything. So as you mentioned, guys are filling out in live action right here, and that could be fatal for some of these guys. But so far, Sam, they've handled it pretty well.
Something we've talked about all season long. To the top side, that's going to be Alex Bell in that 15 machine leading the third lane. And that's where his sweet spot's been, feeling like he can carry the most momentum as well, making the biggest moves there in that third groove. But this is a smaller field than what we've previously been seeing throughout the season. Only 28 drivers able to make it to this race, and it looks like we're starting to have some drivers that actually started on pit road are having issues early, and those are playoff drivers that are having issues.
Yeah, I mentioned Lucas Strayer. He's already a lap down. Was dealing with not only the controller issue, but he's not on his necessarily home base, if you will, of the setup. So, you make the best of it. I've been in that situation. There was a time, Sam, playoff situation where I was in Alaska away from my setup. So, yeah, internet wasn't the best, and it was Watkins Glen. So, not fun there.
Yeah, that is that would be a very rough time for sure. Like we said, Lucas Strayer having issues right now, 2 laps down. First car to be multiple laps down. Also, Gavin Jones did not start the race. That 12 machine in our playoffs. This is an awful time to be missing out on a race, as this could be really a championship run ending a moment for the 12th machine.
Yeah, it's always tough. You don't want to admit defeat, never say die, but we already talked a little bit about the point situation. I mean, he was one of those guys that needed some miracles to happen to catch up, and this, as you mentioned, definitely not going to do him any favors.
Now we talk about how points are going to be extremely important right now. Lucas Cram, top of the points so far. Right now, running in the middle of the pack, 14th place, and just lingering on that high side. Really just looking for a decent day today. Just has to hit his marks, survive, and make sure he gets a top 10 run, and should still be our points leader. Everyone else, though, they're looking to get as many points as possible, and that means getting a pit stop and getting the most out of these stage points that are coming at the halfway marker.
That means being aggressive too. You're already seeing it. Guys like Blake Trewick up there, Hoff, they're all making these, what normally moves would be a little bit questionable, but you got to do it. You've got to go. There's a gap that you've got to, be able to close down quick. And for guys like Hoff and Olson that are still within the possibility of making it up, in a couple races, they have to not only be ahead of Olson, but they got to be well ahead of Olson. So if they notice he's lagging back like he is right now, to your point, Sam, they're saying, hey, we got to be up here up front in control and kind of force Olson to Cram to do some things that he doesn't want to do early in this race.
As you had a little bit of a closer look at the 25 and the 9 and the 24 going through the inside through these corners, they're getting extremely close to that yellow line, but they also got to be careful of that transitional phase of moving from the inside to the apron. They could really bounce up and could cause some carnage if they're not careful, but just seeing the cars wiggle as much as they are, you could see the speed that they're carrying into these corners so much more than what they've done previously. And this new update has really changed a lot for these drivers.
Oh, no doubt. And, talking to Cram off air about it before the race, he said, if you're not careful, if you're that guy on the inside or whatever behind somebody, you've got to watch, or else you could easily just plow through a guy into the corner, to your point. So it's a lot more mental focus required, which is crazy to say because Superspeedways as is already extremely, tough mental challenge, be able to be on it at all times. But these guys are, going through the paces early on and figuring it out.
And that lone driver in front. That's going to be Jacob Locklear in the 84 machine, all by his lonesome, about to be ran down by our leaders. So soon to be the second car a lap down as soon as this pack gets up to them, and they're really in cruise control at the moment, not really seeing anyone going 3 wide at this second. I think a lot of drivers have recognized, hey, let's try something in those first 5 laps, back off, and now we kind of have an idea of how we want to move through the pack once we get later on in this race, and probably even setting up for the stage, because like I said, points looking so important for these drivers. If you're around 6th or back points wise for the championship run, you've got today's race for the Dega 200, and then you've also got next week, which is going to be at the Daytona 2008 configuration. And Tyler, that configuration is bouncy, and it's hard to make a lot of moves on a bouncy surface.
Well, and we saw some of the chaos it brought, earlier in the season, so I'm definitely excited for that. But here at Dega right now, you talk about the points and setting up for the stage, the jockeying for position as we get closer to pit stops here, around lap 20, assuming that's about the same fuel run we've seen, it's going to get a little hectic, and you're already seeing some of Alex Fox, Straywick, they're comboing all that top line, just the 2 trucks. Can they make it work? Looks like Darlin may be coming with them as well.
Yeah, Darling in that one machine going to be trying to make a move for sure right here and continuing to push on. And we're looking and seeing how that momentum is going to be carrying forward. But right now, looking very solid for the high groove. Treywick trying to get his second win of the season. That first win that he got helped that 56 machine even have a chance to be in the playoffs at the moment. And right now, looking to make another late charge and maybe another miracle throw for a win here. And if this 56 machine does get a win, sets him up for a chance at the championship next week.
As good of a chance as you could hope for at this point, right? I mean, he is hadn't had the worst playoffs. It's just so hard to make ground on some of these guys with the bonus points, whether it be Graham Olson or Hoff. But as we saw last week, Sam, anything could happen. Guys that we thought maybe weren't quite, given the chance, wouldn't have the chance come down to the final races, they've got a chance. So definitely interesting to watch. But look at some of the shuffling. These guys are being very picky, it seems, early on with who to work with and who not to.
Yeah, and they're just waiting and lingering for that time. And so far, it's working quite well for themselves as they're still just waiting for themselves for that moment to strike up front. And right now, it's going to be Brandon Hoff and also Clint Spillman. They're doing a great job. But on that outside, it's going to be that 24 machine just waiting. Nick Olson already's gotten a win here in the NS Service playoffs and trying to get another one here. And it's been looking, most of these drivers have been waiting for their chance to make a push, and it's been looking very solid so far.
Yeah, and another guy in that sense, Brendan Hoff, you already mentioned him out front here, but he's a guy that came into this playoff as kind of maybe the guy to beat because he'd been uber consistent. Then all of a sudden you go back to last week, and he just has kind of a rough day. It's the one that if he doesn't, or excuse me, not last week, but 2 weeks ago to start things off, had the rough day here at Talladega. So, he's looking to kind of get a little bit of vengeance in that sense and put himself right back into the mix.
Yeah, and, really looking at the points, really close to points, our top 5 have gotten wins so far. Everyone else rests in the playoffs besides Treywick. They haven't gotten a win so far this season. They've shown pace, they've shown speed, just luck has not been there to set themselves up for that win. And really, I think that's when we're going to start to see some of these drivers trying to change their luck here at the half. Back to racing action. Our first caution has come out. Tyler, I believe you got notice of what exactly went down.
Yeah, going through that tricky trioval area, and we talked about the trucks kind of moving, bouncing around a bit more, and it just so happened that Brett Murphy and Mr. Dylan Parker there about mid pack, a little bit closer to maybe the end of that first pack. Bumpers did match up quite well, Sam, and Mr. Murphy got sent around there and hard into that wall, so definitely have to use one of those fast repairs, the fast repair for him, and now having to kind of re-strategize of what to do. But with that caution as well, it's created a situation here where we're close to that, where it would have been green flag stops. Now guys are having to choose to pit, not to pit. And I think for the most part, it looks like everybody decided to bring it down. So that'll be interesting as we get to the end of the stage here.
Yeah, interesting it for sure, because These drivers now coming into the pits, it's going to make them extremely close to making it to the end of the stage. But drivers are waiting to go green. Once the green flag back in the air, it's going to be Brandon Hoff leading the way with Nick Olson.
And he knows, folks, that there's a lot of single file back there. It tells you people were topping off those tanks, Sam. So it's going to be interesting to watch who tries to stretch it. Typically, that fuel run is pretty stringent at 20 laps, but we've seen cases where guys go 22. Ooh, Lucas Cram right now getting no help trying to find a hole, and he's going to get sucker hold.
Yeah, he's going to go sucking all the way back to the 15 machine of Alex Bell, where Bell will be finding the 44 and trying to help him move forward. But everyone's just trying to find their gaps and where to place themselves now. We got 2x2 going about 8 rows back. And looking at these drivers and the way they're going to have to react here, coming to the end of this stage, it's all about getting up front. And with that caution that came out, you got to see there, Tyler, how these cars kind of react when an accident happens now, just because this new update has really changed a lot for these drivers. And really, the power by himself, that driver on the third lane is really starting to move.
Yeah, it could be Quinn Gingrich right there. That 48 is. He's falling back now, but finally lost some of that momentum. But, these guys, we saw it in practice, heard it from Lucas himself, of just the runs are so much different now with everything. So there's been a bit of a different timing going on, and I think you could really do more with less. So the guys like Alex Bell, the Connor Horns of the world, that we've already seen, hook up and kind of make, something out of what should be nothing. I'm interested to see as we get closer to the end of this race and get to those final stages, who's going to make Alex Bell make contact, since Hal around takes out a couple trucks there. Darling getting involved, and a few others as well. So that was a quick caution there, and not too many laps later here. Got back going, got off into 1 and 2, and it looks like Britt Murphy again having issues. Contact down the back straightaway. He got sent around. Could have been a bigger wreck. It was the middle of that front pack, but it looks like it just primarily got him. So, bit of a break there for the rest of the field. But these guys, we mentioned it before the issues here, Sam, but it's a new build. It's new things to get used to, and you could tell some of these guys still struggling to kind of figure it out a bit.
Yeah, it's going to take time for these drivers to recognize this. I mean, some of these drivers have been working with the old build for so long that switching this massive of a switch, it's going to take about a couple of weeks for these drivers to finally understand, hey, maybe I can't do that same move, or hey, that's a new move I can try out, but I need to be a little bit more patient moving forward. Some drivers have gone with tires on this pit stop. It looks like Jacob Locklear, as well as Clint Spillman, Chris Sawyer, and others that came into the pits about 15th on back, going for tires on this stop. Tyler, usually when we come to a super speedway, tires aren't the most important thing coming here.
No, but with everything kind of new and weird, I think it definitely is probably more of a comfort factor for some of these guys, right? To just continuing to take some of these tires, feel the good grip, and things of that nature. So see how that plays out. I mean, especially here at Talladega, we've noted it before where you're going through that tri-oval on older set of tires. That's probably one of the biggest times on these super speedways where you're going to really feel a difference, especially if you're stuck on that inside or pinned on it. So, because there's that slight banking change. So, these guys going through that. Something though in that last wreck, Sam, because of some of the checkups that went on through the wreck there with Miss Murphy, Lucas Cram, he unfortunately took some damage during all that. Took some rear end damage, took a bit of front end damage. I'm noticing after the pit stops, still has some of that, so it's not burned the fast repair, but that is definitely something to watch. We talked about guys like Brandon Hoff and Nick Olson being able to take advantage of what they would probably hope to be some missteps from Cram. This might be an opportunity in this first stage.
I think that's the main thing for Cram, though, is the fact that he is the points leader. He has to be thinking, I need to save myself just in case. And we say this fast repair just in case. I mean, he's got to have a good finish. Yes, stage points and having the best vehicle for this stage would be awesome to have, but it's not really the most important thing for his mentality moving forward in this race. For a lot of these other drivers, like Trey Wick, Olson, Hoff, and really Colby Wells, who's back in 12th place in points, really they're needing these great runs to try to run down this 44 machine that's been just looking so good and so quick all season long.
Yeah, to that point, Blake Trawick right now has positioned himself in second as we get ready. Pace lights are out on the pace trucks. We'll be going this time by. Those guys, like you talk about, trying to take advantage now. And how about Brady Floyd? Guy not in the playoffs, but he's now found himself up front through some of this chaos. We talked about at the start of the broadcast where these guys that are not in the playoffs, they're racing for pride. They're racing for W's. It'll be interesting to see how he mixes it up with the playoff drivers here around.
Yeah, and also an update for Gavin Jones, who was not initially in the grid for today's race. He has shown up and is going to be a total of 15 laps down. But still, if we have a lot of cautions, opportunity still is there for that 12 machine to possibly get a wave around if we start to see more drivers. And the lucky dog not looking the best for the 12th machine, but at least here to get points.
No, but he has been, it looks like, continually under these cautions. He's been granted some waiver rounds. So it looks like for whatever issue he was having, they are granting him an opportunity to maybe get back into this if possible. Obviously, you can't just, stop the entire race and let him get his lap back, all of his laps back, but they're at least showing some mercy in that sense. So that'll be something to watch. Like you mentioned, if you keep stacking up some of these cautions, you never know what could happen.
Yeah, you really don't, and especially with how quick we've been seeing these most recent cautions coming out for these drivers. It gives a chance for the drivers that are needing maybe a little bit more luck right there for an opportunity. As we are in the Dega 200, about to go green once again. We're aiming for lap 35. That is when we're going to be having the stage break for today's race here at Talladega. For the SARG Superspeedway NS Service playoffs, these drivers all hunting. This is race number 3 of the 4 playoff races. It's all about who has the most points out of the 12 drivers in the playoffs. Lucas Cram's leading the way points-wise, but it's going to be Brady Floyd and Blake Trawick leading the charge as we are about to get set to go green once again.
Brady Floyd going to be leading it, as you mentioned. How quick, though, is Nick Olson, Brandon Hoff, both of them in that second row? How quick are they going to make moves here on this green flag start?
I mean, they are right on the bumper of both those machines trying to get going. Floyd gets a great start and also going to be following suit. And now we're going to be seeing Hoff dropping low, leaving Trawick by his lonesome. And he's got Stanley for about 3 car lengths back and needing some more help if he wants to get down. But I think if anything, Floyd is just going to be pulling away. Trawick trying to find an opening to come down, but that opening closing up quickly. And now you're starting to see cars further back starting to shuffle around, understanding, hey, if you want a good run, or the points, that is, for these drivers that are in the playoffs, they need to get up front, get as many stage points as possible.
Yeah, Nick Olson immediately made that move to push Brady Floyd out there. They took advantage, jumped to the top side. Now he's leading that second line, and he's looking to get up in front of Floyd. And I'm kind of surprised that Hoff stayed on that bottom line.
Yeah, Hoff right now, I think just waiting and lingering. I think Hoff is third in points, so not in the biggest of rushes to make sure that he gets the win now, and understanding, hey, we still got another 5 laps until we are done with the stage, and these drivers have a lot to hunt for as we are still marching to the end of stage 1.
Mind you, too, you mentioned Lucas Cram. He's currently on the tail end of this front pack. He does still have some damage, but it looks like, Sam, it's not affecting him in terms of keeping speed. So he's probably thankful for that because now he's in a position to, as long as he still finishes with maybe even a stage point in that 10th spot, that's, huge because it takes off some of that pressure to be up in that top 5, top 3 by the end of the race.
Yeah, Lucas Graham, as you can see back here in 16th position for the 44 machine as we move back up front. Side by side, Nick Olson trying to get by Brady Floyd, and Floyd is doing his best, just asking for a little bit of help, but it's Blake Trawick with a massive shove to Olson and moving the 24 machine to the inside.
And boy, that was tight right there. Nick Olson immediately apologizing over the driver radio. Knew that was going to be tight. Made it stick, though. Kudos for Brady Floyd to be able to probably check up just enough as well.
Yeah, that's a kind of tight racing that you have to do. Trust your instincts. When you hear clear, come down immediately, because if you hesitate, you can find yourself being the car that gets spun around. As now it's going to be Blake Trawick getting a huge shove by the 8 machine.
And then Connor Horn as well, that 67, Robbie Lyon, both of those guys need some big days as well. They're back there looking hungry in the top line. And we mentioned, Bell, Horn, those guys really the pioneers of this series of trying to get that third line to go. Bell right now pretty far back there in this lead pack, so you think Horn maybe starts to look outside? If so, who's going to go with him? That's a big question.
I mean, he's got Robbie Lyon who's ready to go as they start shuffling around, and it looked like that was the 20 machine that got out of shape on the apron, and it got everyone scattered, and they're still trying to really get things singled up, but still holding strong, and now it's going to be Connor Horn who leads that outside groove.
Yeah, and how Treywick, he took advantage of all the chaos right there to the lead in front of the 8, the 24. Now Olsen slide in front of Horn back there. They're still so they're trying to figure it out. Now Horn also diving back down. My goodness.
Both those drivers have to be a little bit considerate here, understanding, hey, we're getting close to stage. It's now to make those moves. Horn able to duck to the inside. And he's going to be moving the 24 up a little bit. Here comes Robbie Lyons to that third groove. And 3 wide, now back for 4th place.
Connor Horn with a message right there. He was continually trying to juke out Nick Olsen. Gave him a little rub right there and said, hey, we'll catch you.
And Connor Horn now going to be drifting up to the high groove. Going to be now getting a shove from Nick Olsen after their little debacle that they had. Surprised Olsen didn't try to deke out that 67 machine, but Connor Horn to the front, getting a huge shove from Nick Olsen. And Olsen, we've already seen get multiple wins this season, trying to get another one here at Talladega. Connor Horn ducks it to the inside, and like you said, these drivers extremely close and really not giving an inch when they're coming down.
It's trust falls at this point. Like there is no room left to give. I don't know how they're making them with confidence. Braver than me, I would say that. But they're making it work. We talked about the talent level in this series with guys that just have this stuff down to a T, and we're seeing it in action here.
2 laps to go left in the halfway marker of this race for these drivers, as they're still going to be pushing on forward. Looking at right now the drivers that are up front, Nick Olsen as well as Connor Horn looking quick. Treywood kind of boxed in and needing a little bit more of an opening. Drivers that are on the outside, you got Darling as well as Alex Bell. They're further back, but if they really get hooked up, we've seen 2 truck tandems really make charges from about 10th all the way up to the lead. It's possible if they get themselves ready to get going.
Yeah, but they're running out of time right here coming around 4. We'll see if anybody peeks out. This is going to be kind of wild down to the finish. We'll see.
Coming to the tri-oval, they're staying 2 by 2. No one's really making a move just yet. Connor Horn needing points. He was back in 5th place of the points coming across the line, but Nick Olsen fighting back across the line. I believe that's going to go to Connor Horn, but it was close between those 2.
And another tap right there by Connor Horn. Even for the stage, he's sitting there defending off Nick Olsen.
Yeah, I think we're about to see both those drivers. If they're close at the end of this race, I don't expect them to be very kind to one another. A lot of bumping to be made, but Connor Horn did cross the line first, beating out Nick Olsen, and the rest of the cars trying to file out and figure out where they're lined up with how close everyone was running and who's in the top 10.
And guess who snuck into the top 10 at the end of that stage? It was Lucas Cram. So what was maybe going to be kind of a lost cause there for the first stage, he at least salvages some, and that's big. Simply because Hoff only finishing 4th in the stage, doesn't get as many points. Olsen didn't get the stage win. He doesn't maximize points, and that's guys that, we talked about, you mentioned, and you were right in the sense that Cram doesn't necessarily have to put himself up there in this first stage. He needs to be there at the end. But at least at this point, with Cram getting some stage points, if he slips back to 7th or 8th or 9th at the end of it, that's a better situation than him missing out on stage points in the first stage and then, not finishing in the top 5, top 3 at the end of it.
Might be a little concerned. Why did Connor Horn duck all the way to the inside? Well, he's just playing some fun games. He's waiting for the pace truck to catch up to these drivers. So decided to give the broadcast a little bit of a scare, but now able to pull into the pits, waiting for his opportunity to come in.
Yeah, smart there, giving everybody a chance to get stacked up and properly into the pits like you're talking about. And I don't know, we'll see if there's any mistakes. Obviously, the green flag or yellow flag stops, less of a chance. I wonder if anybody gambles a bit with the 2 tires. We've talked a little bit about how throughout at least this first stage, guys are taking tires, but I'm curious to see that because now it's a game of track position.
Right now, it's on board with Nick Olsen. He's going with 4. 4 machine just got on track, got to pit road. Continue to watch, but coming out of the pit lane, everyone scattering through and across the line. They all come, but looking like Lucas Cram, the driver that possibly just went for fuel this time around.
Yeah, I'm trying to see on that truck, see if there's still some damage. So has not burnt that fast repair. And it looks like Connor Horner, stage one, are electing to fix some of his banged in fenders a bit there, taking his sweet time on pit road. So smart there. I mean, you win the stage. There really no need necessarily to be right back up front, to start the second stage.
Yeah, and really, I think it's more of a strategy call to be putting yourself all the way in the back of the field. That way, you can try to stay out of trouble and just wait for your time to really move forward. Because if we stay green, like we've been seeing most of this season, these drivers are really able to hold their own. And it's about who can really stay together and have the best run through pit road that finds themselves up front. Because if we stay green, those green flag pit stops is when we start to see a large division of where cars are going to be running.
Yeah, no doubt. And Horn, after seeing the first stage and some of the craziness that went on, we mentioned 3 cautions there before the stage break. So maybe things are kind of a bit more sorted out. You may not see as much craziness, at least to start this second stage. So to your point, he's taking that risk of saying, okay, things have calmed down. Now it's about focus on positioning yourself with the right people for a good green flag stop.
Now, this is the SARG Superspeedway Series. It's the NS Service playoffs for these drivers. This is race number 3 of 4 in the playoffs. It's all about who can collect the most points. Right now, the driver up front, Lucas Cram, is that driver that's on top of the board with a total of 3 wins this season. Got a win last week back at Daytona, and just trying to carry that momentum forward through the rest of the season. Lucas Cram has kind of been known as the best, one of the best super speedway drivers, and this season's been interesting to see. Connor Horn was one of those drivers early on that was looking quick. Also other drivers, you had Alex Bell that won the first Talladega this season, trying to get another win here today. Another driver that's got 2 wins this season, the only driver that has 2 wins, Nick Olson in the 24 machine. That's another driver to keep our eyes out right now. Second in points, 24 points back from Lucas Cram. So those drivers still in striking distance, but I would imagine that really Nick Olson is wanting Cram to have an off day, finishing outside of the top 15.
Yeah, he's telling Cram, hey, you got a nice points lead there. Just don't worry about it today. We'll take care of you. But Lucas, as you mentioned, kind of play the mind games, taking fuel only here to make sure he's out front to at least start the stage. And I wonder, Sam, if he expects to kind of, even with the damage, be that guy up front. I mean, we made note that despite the damage, he was still looking fine. Just sit back there in kind of the middle of the first pack and worked his way up, obviously, to finish the stage. So maybe he feels confident that he can hold up front now.
Yeah, and a couple of other machines that decided to go with fuel only up front. You got Stephen Gall as well as Christopher Tate that decided to go, as they're both 4th and 5th position. And the rest of the field went with all 4 or even 2 tires. And drivers that are up front, I mean, Brandon Hoff, I think, coming into the playoffs, was the leader of the points, most consistent of all the drivers. Didn't have the wins, but right now the consistency needs to be there, and also needing a win. I believe this 9 car really needs to have a fight going into next week.
Yeah, and we saw that a bit in the first stage, where he was making some of those bold moves and trying to position himself consistently in the top 3. And fortunately for him at the stage there, it didn't work out. I think ideally he wanted to be competing for that stage win, but you saw Connor Horn make some of those bigger moves there. But we haven't talked too much about teams in this series because it is super speedway racing. You kind of got to, dance with whoever at certain points in the race, but I don't think there's going to be very many necessarily team-friendly moves out there at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen the grit guys all rocking their grit sponsors, and they've been working around and trying to be up front the most that they can. Pace Truck is in the pits. We're in the middle of the trial, getting ready to go green. We're racing to the end. No more stages to worry about. It's about who's going to be getting the win from here for the Dega 200 for the NS playoffs here for the SARG Superspeedway Series.
Outside line, not the best restart out there. Obviously, a situation again where you're seeing a bunch of guys stacked on the inside, topping off those fuel tanks and trying to stretch as much as possible. But look at the inside line. Hoff, Cram getting hooked up. Christopher Tate in that 4 as well. Then Alex Bell, the 15.
You just see Treywick just losing ground and continuing to drop back, as that inside line was the one that got more lined up quicker. But really, I'm keeping my eye out on that 3rd lane. When will it finally emerge? Because we've seen it come out earlier in the season, where that third lane was there really from the start of the race and never really left until green flag pit stops were coming around. All these other drivers, though, keeping their eyes. Who's going to make that move? Speaking of a move, here comes Brandon Hoff in the 9.
Yeah, typical here. He needs to make these type of moves, and he's going to have Alex Bell, Treywick now. 52, the 8 is well behind, so a decently strong outside line now. And can he get that push to get clear? We see these guys, basically say, hey, I need about an inch. That's about it to pull down.
Yeah, really just need a little bit of space, and that second car on the inside line just carries so much more speed. They can really make that pass and make the move to the front. The 9 machine with a huge shove from Alex Bell and Blake Treywick as they continue to move forward and really marching with a ton of speed. But it's Lucas Cram staying consistent, hitting his marks, holding strong on the inside.
Yeah, and you're seeing down there, Christopher Tate doing an excellent job, and that's Quan Gingrich as well in the 48. He's taken some punishment in this race from a few of those wrecks. Has used his fast repair at this point, but he's up here trying to party. You got the 71 of Jordan Clark as well on that inside line.
Yeah, and also the 2 of Dagger that's going to be behind Clark. So a lot of names we haven't been seeing most of this race making their charge to the front now. And this is the time to do it. If you're going to be making any type of move, make it now. Say, hey, I've got the speed. And if you have to, go up to the third lane and back off, drop back, or even move to the apron and keep yourself on the tail end of this lead lap.
Look at the control here, though. Neither lane getting the clear advantage. There's been times where, Cram will poke out, then it'll be Hoff, but nobody can make a move. Hoff's kind of stuck on the outside line. Cram just holding tight on the inside. It'll be interesting to see when this breaks. You talked about that third line. These guys seem content, at least right now, to kind of keep the status quo.
Yeah, and I think cruise control is kind of where these drivers are at, recognizing, hey, we got to make it to our first green flag pit stop, and then let's start worrying about really going 3 wide and crazy. But you never know when someone's going to pull the trigger and try to really pull it to the third groove and try to take off. Usually the front runners that do that is Alex Bell, Darling, or even seeing a Connor Horn put a nose up to that third lane and seeing who follows. Right now, Connor Horn as well as Jared Darling, they're all the way in the back of the field, just kind of waiting for this field to make them charge, because they're right on the tail end waiting for that charge.
Yeah, just kind of lying in wait like you're talking about, and calculate measures at that point, right? They've seen some of that craziness in the first stage. Obviously, they're hoping it doesn't happen anymore, but you don't want to be right in the middle of it just in case. And look at Alex Bell, though, in that 15 up front. He's given it all he's got to try to get Hoff ahead of Cram, but it's just not quite working out yet.
Clint Spillman and the 88 machine going to be on the outside, and you might be wondering, how can we tell which drivers are a part of the playoffs? Well, it's the drivers that have a P on their name, as well as they're the ones that are going to be having the blue stripe for their spoiler. That's when you're going to tell that driver is a part of our playoffs.
The biggest shuffle I'm seeing early on here in this last part of this race, Sam, is kind of those guys at the tail end. They're all kind of jockeying. It looks like guys like Dylan Parker, Colby Wells trying to match up, with their buds. And I think as we get closer to, that green flag stop, you're going to see a little bit more of that, because you get down to a muddy stop like this, it's about who can you trust around you to make sure, hey, no mistakes can be made going into the pit road.
Yeah, trying to make the least amount of mistakes. And we've seen that throughout the whole entire season, though, that mistakes on pit road could be so costly from a driver that is running up in the top 5, top 10, sliding through your pit stall. Losing ground that time could cost you a chance for a win at these Superspeedway tracks. But right now, still side by side, and really looking like no one's in any type of a rush. I mean, Clint Spillman looked like he moved up just to drop back from where everyone else was at. So we continue to wait.
Yeah, it's typical for Mr. Spillman there. He likes to fill it out, at least to start the race, or start the back half of the race, and then pick a spot to kind of lie in wait. But another thing I'm seeing too, I'm really curious that see Gingrich get a little bit out of shape there on that bottom line, but guys like Gingrich and Clark and Dagger that are not in the playoffs, I am a little bit surprised, Sam, that they have not forced some more action. I know they're trying to be respectful to a degree, but and speaking of action, Hoff finally gets a big push from Bell, and he's going to drop it down for Lucas Cram.
Yeah, I think this is a blessing for Bell, who was right on the back bumper of that 9 for so long. The temps must have been racing with how much he was right on the back bumper of the 9, and a new leader on the outside, Treywick, doing exactly what Bell was doing, trying to push that 15 truck to the front.
Yeah, Treywick's been a guy that's a pretty good pusher when he's hooked up. He's shown some muscle in that sense, and I think Bell trusts him at this point to be able to give him that type of shove, but those are not necessarily two guys that are teammates, so you're going to have a little bit of a standoff maybe as far as who actually controls the lead at that point.
Starting to see trucks really shuffling back and forth through the tri-oval, and that's a nerve-wracking spot to see a little bit of shuffling, because one wrong bump on a quarter panel could find yourself spinning around, and a lot of drivers know where to go.
Yeah, it's already happened a few times this race. Britt Murphy's been a victim a couple times now of that shuffling you're talking about, especially in the mid-pack to the back of the pack, where guys are just trying to pick spots, and you make that one wrong turn where you just catch enough of the bumper, and all of a sudden you're around or you're sending somebody around. And, these guys are so far a little bit more leery of that in this back half of the race, but you can tell some of them started to get a bit antsy. Ooh, Bell and Tate almost come together. Now here goes Graham looking back for the lead.
Lucas Graham found an opening and moving that 44 truck to the high side. Now getting a great shove and had the opportunity to come down, but decides otherwise, trying to pull Bell. And Bell not going to go to the outside of the 44, just not wanting to stay put where he's at. And that's going to be a lap truck in front of our leaders, as they're going to be trying to go on the inside of that truck. And moving along, I believe that's going to be the 38 machine.
Yeah, Sean Howe's already been, unfortunately, in a couple incidents. While we were Ray, he got turned in one, going for the lead. Just kind of miscommunication there, and I think he did catch another piece of one of Murphy's incidents. A tough break for him. He was showing some speed early on in this race.
And re-looking, right now, Alex Bell losing some momentum. I think all these drivers on the outside, they're starting to get lined up, and one big shove could find themselves all moving forward, but that inside groove already hooked up and going.
Well, and you're starting to see now as this green flag run goes on, Sam, we're seeing more and more of these guys on the inside start to get a bit more bouncy in the tri-oval. So, we were kind of wondering how much the tire grip, per se, had changed either by the track conditions or maybe the update as we've talked about. And I think that's kind of our answer to that. It is definitely a bit of a different feel. So, it explains why some of these guys are committed to 4 tires every time we come down pit lane.
Christopher Tate has just been locked to that 9 truck's bumper and has not let off. How long can these trucks really stay behind another machine? And it looks like it's about for a lap and a half. And then they kind of have to get out of the way, maybe 2 laps at the most, before those temps look a little bit too high to be really pushing as much as you want to be.
Well, and yeah, for it to be going all out like that, a lap and a half to maybe 2. Now, there is a way to, if you're pushing hard on the straightaways and you kind of give them a little bit of slack in those corners, you could, get some good usage out of that. In the long run, that's where you want to go. But guys like Alex Bell, I don't know if they have that in their playbook. They seem to be just as much as they can be on the back of a person at all times. And you see Bell right there. He'll peek up in the corners to get a little bit of that air. So that's just kind of one of those veteran moves, if you will. Look at that third line, maybe. Some guys experimented. It's those 3 purple trucks, Parker, Wells, and trying to see who Locklear as well, Dave.
Yeah, those purple machines trying to get set up and in line. And you talked about teammates. When will they start moving forward? Well, those 3 already trying to get locked in and getting going. It's all about how well you can keep your trucks in line and how smooth you can be. And that third lane, we've seen it time and time again, get going. Treywick might be thinking about moving up in front of them, and he does. That was kind of a late move by the 56 machine.
Yeah, he kind of put a half foot in, half foot out. Then how about Christopher Tate up front before he's in the lead now?
Yeah, Christopher Tate was trying to push his way, trying to push that 9 machine, but might have figured, hey, I've got the momentum. It's time to move now. Going to be Treywick leading that third lane, and then the middle. Oh, these drivers got to be very careful here. That's going to be Cram in the middle leading the charge, and Tyler, it was very cloudy for these drivers. The track is starting to lighten up. The sun's now going to be beating on the track. How much is the track temp also a factor for these drivers?
Well, considering what we've seen with the tire factor, maybe it's more than we're thinking. Typically on Superspeedway, it doesn't matter too much in terms of the track temp unless it's just unreasonably hot. That being said, with just some of these changing conditions, I think you're seeing it affects some guys. We just saw on the outside there, Locklear got a little crazy that third line, smacked the wall a bit. Now it's kind of broken up that third line. You're back to 2x2, but you see guys like Gingrich, 48, he's coming up in the middle of the corner, not trying to, but you know, you can tell as the green flag run goes on, these trucks maybe not handling the best right now.
As a Gingrich, we talked about him making a bold move to the outside, now trying to lead that charge. Going to be looking for a little bit of help as more cars on the back half of the field going to be scattering and trying to get in line, as we are about 5 laps, maybe even 7 laps away from green flag pit stops for these drivers. And this is something for them to keep on watching out for.
Yeah, Alex Bell made a quick dive away from Gingrich back there about 7th or 8th, somewhere in there. And these guys started to try to single file out like you're talking about. It's getting to that point where you're going to be looking for these green flag pit stops soon.
Yeah, these drivers are going to be aiming for the next 4 laps. Probably with about 20 laps to go, they're going to be probably coming in for most of these drivers. Maybe 19 laps to go just to feel a little bit more comfortable. And then it's all about how well can you keep your car clean and make sure that you have the cleanest pit stop on entry, during your pit stop, and on exit. We were notified by Cram before the broadcast. These tires, you could be wheel spinning a ton out of pit road if you're not careful with the new tire model that they're dealing with, just because of how cold the tires are going to be.
Yeah, that'd be a new factor for them to deal with, like you're talking about somewhere. You know, we are always more concerned about how they got into pit road, but now that's something to watch because, oh boy, Tate trying to move down there just a bit. Door got shut, and it's Cram and Hoff back together again. And look at some of these guys, Sam. They're just, I mean, it is everybody for themselves, it looks like right now.
Yeah, and some of these drivers we haven't really talked about that are up front. I mean, we got 52 Machine of Gall, who is someone that's got a good pit stop because he just went for fuel, and that's what puts his 52 Machine up front right now, running in 5th position, second car on the outside, and waiting for a charge to make a move forward. But right now, Christopher Tate, this has been probably the best run we've seen this 4-car have. A lot of terrible luck throughout the season, and right now was leading that top groove, now going to be second in line.
Yeah, and holding the zone, doing a good job of when he needs to be a pusher, pushing, then take advantage. Look at him get that huge push for Hoff right there. He's trying to make sure he can maybe dive it down and get back to the inside. He's going to follow Hoff to the inside. So he's playing it smart. He's taking some notes. And the luck factor, I mean, we talked about some guys having some bad luck. Christopher Tate definitely at the top of that list.
Yeah, and honestly, watching this race right now, Christopher Tate and Hoff, they've been a great combo so far, working with one another. And then it's Lucas Cram that decides, you know what, I kind of want to be pushing Hoff at the moment, and we'll just deke out the 4 Machine to get him out of the way. And it's interesting to see how these drivers are able to move their trucks around to find the openings that they want, and also try to fake out the other drivers that they're around.
Yeah, it's all about those mind games, the mental aspect. And especially with everything going on, it's probably the most mental focus that some of these guys have had to use in a race in a long time because there's just so many things happening at all times around you.
Looking at these drivers, 21 laps to go. They've been out there for 19 laps since the last time they came into the pits. They might be able to push it to 22 laps if they were saving under caution, but this is going to be very close for these drivers that are looking to pit here. Probably this lap would be the marker for some of these drivers to be coming to the pits, the start of seeing how this front row is about to scatter, especially with seeing Hal on the inside and really having to hold that lane while we're too wide.
Yeah, there's a bit of a situation where Hal, I don't think, quite saw him coming as quick, so he basically told him, hey, I'm sticking here, staying here, you're going to have to work around me. Good job by the field to make sure that wasn't a bad situation, because sometimes when you're used to guys obviously sticking to the outside, not having to move, you don't really worry about it. But everybody respected each other there in that sense and got done.
No one took that opportunity, but we know for sure it is time for these drivers to come into the pits. It's got to start. It's open pit road, and once you come into the pits this time, you are good to make it to the end. It's all about how clean you can get in, get out, and make sure you're with the other cars that you came in with. You cannot have the opportunity. You have to come in with other drivers. You cannot come by yourself.
Yeah, and already hearing a lot of chatter of guys getting ready to come in. I think we're going to see probably at least 2 big groups. You might see it break down into even 3 groups here. Let's see who pits this first time by.
Waiting for cars up front. When are they going to be coming in? And it looks like
Some
No
guys
one
with back.
Yeah, that back half of the field. You got yourself with Stanley, Jones, Sawyer as well coming in. Jacob McMillan did not follow that. That's like a lot of, I believe this is about a 4-car pack that's coming in this time.
Yeah, that's a bad feeling when you're that small of a pack and you go, oh no, we may have messed up right there. Typically you want at least probably a good 7 trucks. Now Spillman hearing over the chat there that he's trying to get down to be able to pit this time. Look at him slowly inch down. Oh, trying to squeeze in.
Trying their best, and Robbie Lyon going to get a little bit out of shape after some contact there. Back in that 10th position. These drivers, they're trying their best to get in line, and that's the struggle about staying high, but they're all starting to come in now.
And here you go, oh, huge group right here. Pretty much everybody minus a few trucks. And it bottlenecks at the end of pit road. Looks like for the most part, everybody got in clean.
3-4 wide through pit road, and luckily pit road is this large, but still a lot nerve-wracking for these drivers. 2 cars did stay out, Gingrich and also Brady Floyd staying out.
Surprise there, Floyd was a 1 point in position to almost win that first stage, and taking a bit of a gamble there. And now Gingrich and Floyd talking to each other about tires, no tires. And that's important because when you just got 2 trucks, you've definitely got to be on point of coming out on top of each other.
Christopher Tate going to be the first car out of this group, and we'll keep an eye out on the drivers that might fall out of this group. The issue with drivers coming in such a large group like they did is if you messed up on your pit road, there's not really a safety net to fall back to if we saw 2 to 3 major groups.
Yeah, no doubt, and that's probably the biggest fear. I mean, it makes it that much more important when you get that one big group like you talk about pitting. You cannot be the odd man out or the odd man or 2 out that screws up and loses 4 or 5 seconds off the pack, basically.
Gingrich coming in. Also, you're going to be seeing here Jacob McMillan coming in. Jacob McMillan 2 laps down at the moment for this 21 machine, who is rocking a special scheme for himself here, rocking the Toyota machine. He's rolling this out for his grandfather that is not doing so well at the moment. So running a tribute machine for his grandfather.
And while we were looking at that too, Christopher Tate got bullied a bit, Sam, for that lead up front. You had Cram there and Connor Horn kind of pushed through and shuffle him back. Now Tate finds himself behind about 4 or 5 trucks.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of the disadvantages of being the first car to get out of pit road is you're kind of set up as that sitting duck. And also we've been seeing, a lot of these drivers shuffling back and forth. And right now up front, Brandon Hoff going to be leading the way. Lucas Cram, Nick Olson. These are your 3 top drivers up front. Alex Bell also thrown into the mix here. Robbie Lyons. And this group is looking strong. It's about 8 cars deep. And that's a good group to try to pull away from the rest of the field, especially with how scattered we're seeing everyone else behind them.
Yeah, kind of surprised it wound up being this scattered. I figured you'd probably get anywhere about 10 to 15 trucks come out on top of each other, but it just didn't work out that way. And, I mean, you still got, Jared Darling, that group behind right there that will probably, I would imagine, catch, and they are going to be able to catch this pack and make it about a 12-truck pack. So, interesting, though. A lot of guys that, it just had to shuffle their way through. Darling was one of those trucks that was involved in one of the wrecks earlier. It looks like he is burnt to fast repair at this point, so that'll be something to watch out for.
Yeah, and right now this once was an 8-car group is now turned into a 12-machine pack that's trying to pull away. But Kyle Dagger back in 13th position has Clint Spillman pushing him along, but there's only about 4 or 5 machines in line, and they're losing ground to this 12-car pack every single lap. It doesn't matter how much they're in line. They are really struggling because they've got to push those machines to the max of their temps, and they're going to run out of space and really have to cool off their trucks, and it's going to really fall off and hurt them in the long run.
Yeah, and what they have to hope for is that this front group really starts shuffling around. Because that's what you got to do, basically. I mean, you got to, like you mentioned, you got to maximize your pushes and hope that front group starts getting a little antsy and not staying in the 2x2 like they are now.
And right now, staying 2x2, they stay. As right now, it's going to be Alex Bell on the outside, holding strong as he finds himself with Parker pushing him in the 25 machine. And then on the inside, You've got yourself Hoff and Nick Olson and Cram all in line with Connor Horn. Those are 4 extremely strong machines. And then you can also put Robbie Lyons involved there. I think Lyons is probably another machine that's been having a lot of bad luck this season. Has had himself a lot of machines that looked quick enough to win a race, but just not there at the end.
And going back real quick, because I just noticed this, Dagger and Spillman, they look at a 2-truck tandem, and they have pulled away from Floyd and Murphy, and they've gained a good 6/10 on the front pack there. So, hey, 2-truck tandems might be a thing at this point.
Yeah, but it's Clint Spillman that I'm the most concerned about. The fact that he's been locked in on this 2 machine for so long. Is he being able to get enough air into the machine through these corners to really make these charges, or is that engine going to blow up by the time that they catch up to this front pack?
Well, clouds are out a bit. You see it on the track, so that helps out, gives you a little bit more of a range to push. And if I heard correctly by Dagger that they're there, and all of a sudden there's 5 more tenths gone, and they're only about a second off the back, so they might have done it. That is impressive if they were able to do that in a couple laps.
With this new update, the draft package has gotten faster. The pull is much stronger, and you're seeing it here. Kyle Dagger is there with Clint Spillman. But now that you look back, that's going to be Brady Floyd and Brett Murphy that are all on their lonesome and really not able to utilize the same package that we just saw Clint Spillman and Dagger do. But they certainly are going to try to copy it.
Yeah, they're seeing how that worked, and they said, okay, let's see what we can do. That's a tough act to follow, though, and with Murphy having his issues, I'm not sure if he has, to your point, a completely perfect truck, although it looks like, hey, he has got a little bit of rear end damage, so that might be a little bit tougher to do as opposed to Dagger and Spillman.
And looking at drivers that right now, all of the playoff drivers that have not had issues here today, they're up front in this pack of 16, and they are running as hard as they can to make sure that they stay up front. Our top 5, all playoff drivers, Hoff, Cram, Horn, Olsen, and Lyons and Bell. Your top 6 now of all playoff drivers.
Yeah, poor guys like Christopher Tate and some of those guys getting shuffled back to this pack, not playoff drivers. You see Don Parker in the middle of it. Steven right there in the 52. So they're kind of getting pushed aside a little bit and saying, hey, we got to sort this out playoff driver-wise.
Yeah, and if anything, this is helping Lucas Cram because everyone is staying close to one another. He's not losing any points, and he's not really truly gaining any points unless he gets the win here. And really, it's interesting just to see how these drivers are going to have to react. Will we see anyone try to move this 44 machine out of the way and possibly shuffle them back to the end of the line?
Well, and that's the thing. I don't know if you'll see anybody actively try to move him so much as Sam, as you mentioned it, where maybe they just don't choose to work with him if he ducks out, right? We saw that earlier in the first stage where there was a moment where he was kind of, second, third, somewhere in that range, and he got put in the circle hole all of a sudden because guys just decided to move around him. So definitely a possibility, and something that I'm sure is kind of in the back of his mind a bit.
And all these drivers just going through the trial, coming to 10 laps to go here in the Dega 200 for the NS Service Playoffs for the SARG Superspeedway Series. It has been a wild season so far. This is the 3rd race of 4 for the playoffs. This is setting us up for the final race next week, where we get to go to Daytona 2008 configuration, where the last time we were there, it was carnage with how bumpy that surface was. You really don't know how the factors are going to change, but here today, we're still waiting to see Lucas Cram with the most wins this season with a total of 3, and then you've also got Nick Olson with 2. Everyone else still trying to look for their 2nd win this season, besides Connor Horn, who also has 2 wins this season.
They're still keeping it 2 by 2 a little bit, surprisingly. I mean, you see Cram move down, we talked about that, but you got Connor Horn and Alex Bell right next to each other, Sam. When do they decide to maybe link up and try to push that outside line? I see Jared Darley in the 1, getting shuffled back a little bit further even now.
Yeah, I don't think moving back isn't really a true issue. We've seen the power of seeing Spillman and also Dagger. If you get those 2 trucks hooked up, you can really start moving, and I think it's more of pick your partner and hope for the best. Going to the outside, though, that is going to be a bold move for that pink machine. I believe that's going to be Colby Wells, who's now going to be dropping back, as now they're going to be 4 wide with the lap machine and able to stay close. Good thing we're at Talladega where there's enough room to do that.
Yeah, he pulled out there, and then you kind of maybe realized, oh, this was not the proper move with that lap truck coming in. So had to fall back in line, but avoided a little bit of chaos there.
And the drivers now coming to the trial going to be coming around to the line. 8 laps to go is waiting for these drivers, and it's still waiting. I mean, I'm expecting a lot of these drivers to maybe start making moves with 2 laps to go, maybe 3 laps to go. That's been the window that everyone's been kind of aiming for to finally make their late charge if you're further back in the pack. But for the drivers up front, it's more of pick your line, hope that you're still the car leading the charge, and someone behind you is pushing you to the win.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a little bit of a, high noon duel, right? Like who's going to be the quick draw, who's going to be the one that takes the action. To your point there, and sometimes we've seen this season where you got to just, like you mentioned, you got to make a move, hope it sticks, hope somebody picks you up.
You saw there Robbie Lyons as well as Alex Bell getting a little bit out of shape, wiggling through the center of the corner, and they wiggle so much through the corner, but still are able to hold on. Is that more of these drivers trying to hold off because they might have hit the apron, or is it more trying to scrub off time or just follow the driver in front of them?
It's a combination of a lot of things. I mean, especially, take, for example, Robbie Lyon there in the 97. When you're that packed in, on the inside especially, you're going through places like the tri-oval and these corners and, dealing with what seems to be a little bit different tire mile now, where maybe things are a little bit, slidier feel for these trucks. Not only that, it's just hard to follow the guy in front of you. The guy in front of you dips down a little low, you're going to dip down a little low. And you just saw it right there into the corner. Line dipped a little low. Steven behind him dipped low, so it's just, you try not to be monkey see, monkey do, but it's tough sometimes.
This is going to be seeing a little bit of 3-wide action, as it looks like Olsen said, nope, you're going to stay in the middle there. Horn getting no help, and now it's a duck in front of Treywick because Treywick was about to just deke his way around Horn, and Horn not allowing that. We're now 3-wide action in that bottom groove. There's no one really there.
Yeah, a little bit of contact there from Lyon and Olsen together now, and then Brennehoff in the middle. That line all of a sudden is the strongest to your point, and he might be able to clear a line. Oh, Lyon, there's contact. They're all
scattering.
Oh, 4 wide down the backstretch.
4 or 5 wide as they're now finally all back on track. But that was a moment.
Oh, there they go.
Treywick goes around and up into Bell and others as we bring out another caution here today.
Wow, only one truck really got turned right there. There's going to be a lot of bit fenders, but Sam, I don't know how that was not worse. Thought the entire front pack was about to be wiped out right there.
As we take another look here, Treywick nowhere really to go in that situation. There's a lot of these drivers scattering, just trying to get around the carnage coming into the corner, and a lot of it was just because these drivers were all trying to get as much as they could out of this situation.
Yeah, typically like that, guys would, relax and kind of figure it out, but, I mean, we're the penultimate race. Nobody's lifted at this point. They're all saying, hey, I'm going to stick to my line. Doesn't matter if it's 4 wide. And Horn right there, he was searching for pretty much an entire lap, Sam, to find his true place in there. He just never quite found one.
Yeah, a driver that got a good eye of everything that went down. That's going to be the driver of the 88 machine. Of Clint Spillman as we take a ride along with the 88 machine coming into this action. I mean, he's got Olsen that comes in. Treywick goes around trying to get on the brakes and sees the 56 come up and then come back down, and just nowhere to go for the 88 machine of Clint Spillman. And now we've had multiple big ones previously in the race before we even got to stage 1. Now you got to look and see who really still has a fast repair to work with moving forward.
Yeah, not only that, I mean, do you burn the fast repair here, right? Like, how confident are you that, you can get away with using it? Because we still got a potential of some green-white checkered. So we've seen and talked to guys where they basically say, I'm going to hold on to that to the absolute just last minute as much as possible.
With the timing of this caution, this actually might put us inside of an inside regulation green-white checkered. So we won't even have to really utilize one of our attempts if that's the case. So we have the potential of 4 green-white checkers if needed for these drivers, which is wild to think. If these pace lap believe if the lights go off this time by once they cross the line, then we will go for an inside of regulation green-white checkered.
Yeah, it's going to be curious to watch. Obviously, man, it looks like some of these guys that I'm trying to check some of the damage from that wreck right there, and there's some guys that were just, bit of a bang up fender, like look at Connor Horn, that 67. He might be able to kind of ride with that. I mean, you don't want to put yourself in a spot to where you have to really, dig through the field in 2 or 3 laps. Not to say that it can't be done. We've seen it. But at this point, if you get a bent fender or two, you just kind of go, yeah, maybe we'll just make it work.
Yeah, we're going to go back, see what Treywick's machine looks like. Treywick should have used a fast repair and does. The thing is absolutely beautiful, clean, as well as Alex Bell going to be using a fast repair for himself. And both those machines heavily damaged. Clint Spillman, we saw him have contact as well. So he's going to be staying out with that front fender damage. But the fender damage could be deceiving for these drivers, as it's a possibility that they still could have some type of damage aero-wise that's going to be hurting them really be a lead truck and go for a win.
Well, not only that, of course, with the new update and the differences in the aero package itself, it seems like, yeah, I mean, what you thought before was like, okay, I know this will be okay. You can't for sure know that until you find out here, under green flag conditions. And at that point, it might be too late. What if Connor Horn gets going and he realizes, oh no, I should have gone down there and you burnt that fast repair because he's not quite the same truck as he was. So a bit of a guessing game, bit of a gamble, and I don't know if there's a right answer necessarily for either side.
No, there really isn't a right answer for this, and it's a lot of hope for the best, because with this attempt that we possibly are going to be having here as we wait for the pace truck to cross the line to see if the lights go off this time or not. But if they do go off this time by, we're going to have that inside the regulation green, white checkered, and giving the opportunity for these drivers to, if we race and get a white flag, that's it. We're going to be racing to the line. For others, this is their opportunity to try to gain as many positions, and then maybe a caution comes out and gives them another chance to gain more positions.
Yeah, and that's kind of the gamble that the guys like Bell and Treywick back there are taking a bit. They're saying mainly, hey, we're not done with the race here. I'm really curious, though, Sam, what if you're Lucas Cram right now, and you've got, that points lead sitting there coming into this race. He positioned himself to where he's sitting, 5th right now, kind of in the middle of the hornet's nest here. How do you think he's going to approach this? Is he's going to look at that mentality of, hey, I'm going to try to go for this win steal and risk it a bit? Or do you think he'll sit back and kind of watch the action happen and just hope he hangs on for that top 5?
You have to go now. I mean, it's every single attempt here is a possibility that we're racing to the end. So you have to make every single attempt here for a chance to go up and win this race. It's now a chance for these drivers. It's going to be 2 laps to go when we go green. Once again, it's going to be green, white checkered inside of regulation, which I don't believe that it's going to be taking any of our attempts away at a green, white checkered. So the possibility of 4 attempts for these drivers here tonight.
Hold on to your seats, boys, as DW says. Strap them tight one more time, because this is about to get really wild. Boy, there's a couple guys I've seen. Christopher Tate back there in that Ford, Clint Spillman in the 88. You bet they're going to be putting it all on the line trying to get a win here.
I mean, Jared Darling, another one of those drivers that had that early damage, has been waiting for this opportunity to finally start pushing that one machine to its fullest potential. As this is the Dega 200 here at Talladega, the 3rd race of the NS Service playoffs for the SARG Superspeedway series. These drivers getting ready. It's the penultimate race here as we are getting set for everyone to get going. Pace truck about to pull in. We go through the tri-oval, but that's not where the line starts. It's after they get by the tri-oval, and this section here could win or lose you a race here, Tyler, and exciting to see with the new real settings that these drivers are working with. The update that came into iRacing, it's changed so much. There's been a lot of carnage so far in this race, as this is going to be our first real attempt at a green, white checkered. It's inside of regulation as green flag in the air. It's going to be Brandon Hoff and Robbie Lyons leading the charge.
Inside line getting a nice little shove going on there. Outside line already starting to deform with AC Spillman and some of those other guys peek up.
Yeah, Spillman going to be looking for some friends, and I believe that's going to be Gingrich in that 48 machine, who's just going to duck into the wall, come back up, and that just did not work out for the 45 machine. But up front, it's still going to be Brandon Hoff leading the charge, and it's going to be Connor Horn on the inside, kind of boxed in, waiting. Robbie Lyons leading that outside groove. The driver that's going to be moving up to the high side, waiting to see, as it's going to be 2 laps to go for these drivers. On the high side, it's the 4 of Christopher Tate leading his way, trying to get some help, and he's getting it, but it's going to be that center group that's got a great charge moving forward. But here, coming across the line, white flag in the air. It's going to be Brandon Hoff and Robbie Lyons leading the charge, looking for help from all the drivers behind them. White flag, we're racing to the end as everyone's going to be 3 wide, back battling for that 10th place position. But right now, Robbie Lyons looking for some help at that middle groove. They don't really have anyone. Christopher Tate's coming with Clint Spillman and others as they are coming with a hard charge, as they are coming with the head of steam. Excuse me, that was actually going to be Kyle Dagger. That's second in line on that outside groove. Brandon Hoff looking for another win here this season, getting help from Connor Horn. Who's going to scramble as they're 3 wide up front for the lead? Christopher Tate, Robbie Lyons, Brandon Hoff. Who might even try to go for a win? But it's going to be Christopher Tate spun around. Robbie Lyons goes around. It's going to be Brandon Hoff up front. Is anyone else going to be there? Lucas Cram is coming with a head of steam. It's going to be the 52 as they come into the tri-oval. Here they come. Brandon Hoff leading the charge. Lucas Cram, he's got the momentum. He ducks to the inside. The 52 to the outside. Across the line, it's going to be Brandon Hoff getting the win for the 9 car and getting another win this season, which is going to be giving him his 2nd win overall and a huge win and momentum moving into next week for the championship race. The 9 car gets it done, but it wasn't from a great effort from the 44 of Lucas Cram as well as the 52 of Gall. Whew, what a race for those drivers. As we take a quick break, we're actually going to take a replay of that of how that all went down with the accident as well as coming across the line. As this was them coming across the line, it was going to be a hard-fought battle. Cram trying to duck it to the inside, but just not there enough. Barely by a nose. It goes to Brandon Hoff, who gets the win. Incredible to see that action. And then we're also going to take another replay of what started this all. Coming out of 4. I mean, these drivers came with so much speed, but nowhere else to put it. You see on the high side, Dagger going to be trying everything he can. It looks like he gets to the corner panel of the 4, and away they go. Also, it looks like there might have been some net code between Nick Olson and others that caused Robbie Lyon to get spun around, but it's going to be Brandon Hoff getting the win here today. Tyler, a wild one for these drivers. But Hoff, the momentum that he needs, he's 3rd in points. The biggest issue, though, it's not a big gain that he's getting because Lucas Cram getting 2nd place here today. That's not what these other drivers were looking for.
No, but hey, it's something. You know, you got to tip the cap to Hoff for making the proper move there at the end. And like we've seen with these races, sometimes, Sam, it's just better to be the guy in control going into that last lap. What a wild finish. Your heart breaks for guys like Christopher Tate that were just, trying to go for the win, trying to get it done one time. But man, what a wild finish. As always, not surprised at all here in the SARG series, just craziness. And I think Hoff will gain enough, truly, to make this interesting going into next week.
0.02 of a second was the difference between the 9 and the 44s. We're looking at our race results here. Then in 4th place, you had Nick Olson, Ben McDonald, Chris Sawyer, Connor Horn, Gwen Gingrich, as well as Clint Spillman and Jeremy Jones. A lot of drivers cycling through here. And then we go from 11th through 20th. We've got Clark, Lyons, Darling, Rada, as well as Floyd, Bell, Wells, MoMA, as well as Dagger and Parker in that 20th position. The rest of these drivers having not the best of days, being a lap down or more. Blake Treywick, as well as Lucas Schreier and Gavin Jones, the biggest losers really from this race of our playoff drivers, really putting them in a hole where it's looking almost impossible for them going into next week. But still, the possibility of drivers not showing up is also a potential.
Yeah, and that's going to create a bit of drama there in that sense. But how about Steve Miguel, that 52 as well, having a shot at the end? I mean, always love to see, we just talk about Tate, but just some of these guys that did make the playoffs at the end of it, getting a shot to kind of shine here. I'm curious. I keep clicking the refresh, Sam. I will let you know as soon as we get some unofficial point standings where we may be looking at for next week. But it might come down to pretty much Hoff and Cram or Hoff, Cram, and Olson with these realistic shots at a title.
It's going to be wild for sure as we're waiting for the points to come in so we have an idea of what next week's going to look like. Let's bring in Stephen Gall in for the interview with a third place finish here today. A great run for the 52 machine that hasn't really had the best of runs recently. Stephen, it's Sam and Tyler up in the booth. You got us?
Yep.
Well, that was one way to end the show, as the whole entire field practically wrecked around you, and then you found yourself with Cram as you guys tried to run down the 9 machine. What else was there possibly to be done before the carnage that went down?
Honestly, I don't think nothing else would have happened. I think I pretty much did everything I could do to help win, or to help myself win. But yeah, I just tried helping Lucas more since he needs the points. Sadly, couldn't get there in time, but I'm happy just to finish in the top 5 finally.
Yeah, we've been seeing you really battle all season long, having the truck to really have a top 10, top 5 machine, but the luck just hasn't been there all season long. How does it feel to finally be able to have some decent luck to finish a race up front?
Oh god, it feels amazing. I haven't had this luck in forever. Finally finishing top 5 was great. Getting 2 top 10s was fine, but wrecking every other week just sucked. The final finish one out was great.
And Tyler, any questions here for Steven? As it looks like Tyler might be having some internet issues. Steven, going into next week, it's going to be the final race of the season. How are you feeling about going into the 2008 configurated Daytona?
Oh gosh. I'm not the biggest fan of trucks. I'm just not great at it. But I'm hoping to not die and just try to survive and get us a top 10, to be honest. It's not my favorite track, but I'm pretty decent at it.
Well, Steven, the luck was there here today. A top 3 finish for yourself. Before we let you go, though, the floor is yours for any shout-outs.
Cool. I want to thank Lucas and everyone who was in this race. Lucas for obviously hosting the league. And pretty much everyone I worked with today to get a top 5 was great. And you guys for broadcasting this race. And yeah.
Well, that's going to be Stephen Gall in the 52 machine, getting a third place finish. A great run for yourself, and good luck next week. Hopefully, we'll be talking to you then.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
And now we're going to be bringing in third place finishing Lucas Cram, who Lucas came into today's race 3 wins, top of the board, points wise, second place. Not a bad day for himself. Lucas, it's Sam up in the booth. You got me?
Yes, sir.
Well, that was a bizarre way for that race to end. It seemed like everyone was preparing for that finish, 3 wide action, and when the dust cleared, there were only 4 drivers really running for the run for the end there. How was that finish for you? Because it seemed like you did everything you could.
Yeah, I mean, it was. It's actually pretty ironic how it came out there to be exactly roles reversed of last week, where the leaders crashed, and I managed to get through there and try to get Brandon at the line like he did, trying to get to me at the line last week. So that was, pretty wild. I, obviously wasn't going to be in a position to win until that wreck happened. And obviously that really sucked that, all those guys got taken out because they're terrible net code. Nick got turned by that car like 3 comics behind him. It was so weird. So that really was unfortunate. I was really looking forward to seeing what Robbie and Nick could have done up there on the high side and what I could have gotten maybe a top 5 out of that. But I guess I'll take it for sure. I mean, 1/1000th of a second. It's like a hair, not even. So definitely our closest finish by far ever in the series. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, difficult for us to even see up in the broadcast booth of who crossed the line. We had to wait for a telemetry to come in to really confirm who got it there. But for yourself, I mean, all race long, it seemed like you were staying in the middle of the pack. And then after the stage, you started working your way forward. Has it always been more of a wait and survive until the end for today's race, just because you knew you had to save your fast repair just in case carnage happened at the end?
I wish I could say that, but it was more of I just couldn't get myself to be able to stay out front. It felt like every time I got to the front there, obviously, Nick and all those guys around me in points. So I just kind of worked out to where they would usually get around me and I would get shuffled by everybody. So just kind of had to play catch up for the entire first stage there and try to get what I could. I followed Jared up there through the pack to get some stage points, luckily, and that kind of helped me a little bit. But yeah, definitely would have liked to had it a little bit more like last week, where I was able to kind of stay up front all race long. But in a crazy tight points battle like we are right now, it's expected. So just try to do what I could with what I got, and it worked out there pretty well to finish second.
Tyler, are you here?
Yeah, I'm back now.
All right, Tyler, you got any questions for Lucas?
Well, looking at the unofficial points now, kind of updated, you still got a decent gap back to Olsen and Hoff, about 17, 18 apiece there. Really, everybody else probably out of it at this point going into the final week. Not to say that you're completely comfortable there, but with that result, was mission accomplished tonight in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Obviously, it was pretty hectic there at the finish, and wasn't going to go that way probably. But I guess end result for sure. The points, it definitely is a huge help. Only got 2 stage points there, and didn't really lead a whole lot of laps, but definitely got kind of lucky with what I got right at the end of both the stage and the race. So I definitely salvaged a little bit less of that loss, I guess. But 10 points or so, it's not bad at all, and you only have a race or 2 left. So 15 points or so in a whole lot, obviously, but hopefully we can just try to hang on to that. Maybe I'll have a little bit better luck throughout the race.
Well, Lucas, it was a crazy finish for sure for us to watch. But before we let you go, the floor is yours for any short shout-outs.
Huge shout out, of course, to you guys put on an awesome broadcast. Everybody showed up and raced tonight, so it was really fun racing there for the most part. Trying to figure out the new draft model and whatnot. Huge shout out, of course, to Brandon for that win. There's that crazy finish there, so huge shout out to him, and also Grit Marketing teammates. That's pretty cool. Huge shout out to Grit Marketing and Kyle Dega and all those guys. Huge shout out to Robbie for being the co-winner. Obviously, once again, super unfortunate that finish that happened. He's been in position a lot for our entirety of the series, and just has never had it work out for him. So that really is unfortunate. But huge shout out, of course, actually to Steve too. He gave me a hell of a push there, come to the finish, and almost got me the win. So huge shout out to him, and awesome finish by him.
That's Lucas Cram in the 44 machine, who is top of the board points wise, second place finish here, and really looking solid to win the championship next week. But Lucas, good luck next week, as it's going to be a rough one at the Daytona.
Yeah, guys, I appreciate it.
And now we get ready for more racing action from our winner. I mean, Brandon Hoff, a great run for himself. Somehow found himself alive there at the end. Let's get his points at that crazy finish. Brandon, Sam, and Tyler up in the booth. You got us?
I do.
Well, you were running up front, feeling comfortable, and then chaos around you. You found yourself being one of the lone survivors to make it through that wreck. How are you feeling after that chaos and almost being passed by Lucas?
Oh man, I was kind of relaxed, honestly, on that last lap. I had Connor behind me. I knew if Connor didn't get clear of Robbie on the outside, I thought I had a good shot at it. But then I saw Robbie coming with help from Nick, and God, then they wrecked behind me, and I saw Robbie get turned. And I'm like, okay, I got this. And then, of course, I see Lucas right behind me, and multiple reasons. One, because I knew he had help behind him, and 2, because of the championship. I'm like, oh, great, here we go again. Like deja vu of last week, just roles reversed pretty much. And I was worrying because I was losing speed pretty quick, just because of the way this new draft model is, or I won't say new draft model, but the way the update was after today. Man, that was crazy. I knew if I moved high a little bit, I could probably break the momentum just a tiny bit. And I knew him swerving to the inside would make him lose just a little bit of speed. And, it worked. I learned my lesson from last week, at least. I know what I did wrong. I know I was in a completely different spot where I actually had to get by him. But now that I was leading, I knew what I had to do. I knew going into the race, I had to win. I kept saying that the entire race. I got to win. I got to lead the most laps. I got to do whatever I can to get back in it. And I accomplished, I think, 2 out of 3 goals. I think I led the most laps. I don't know, and I won the race. I just didn't get a stage win, but that's okay. That was a really fun race. Running up front with everybody. This new build that iRacing has today, it's great. I feel a lot more comfortable in the draft. I know it was kind of shaky probably at the start, but it turned out to be a really good race for all of us. And I'm just happy to be in victory lane.
Yeah, I mean, with the new build being implemented here, it's going to change a lot of things, especially now that we're going to be going to the older Daytona of the 2008 configuration. It's a lot bumpier and a lot more abrasive to the tires. How are you feeling about going to that racetrack with this new model and going into next week?
Yeah, I was saying, last week or even like a couple days ago, Daytona 08 has always been a good track for me. When we go to play super speedways, no matter what series, whether be official series or SARG, I've always seemed to have a knack on what to do there. I've qualified well there. I've always qualified. I think I've qualified top 2. I think of only a couple of races that I've done there. I'm not sure, but I know I kind of just have a knack. I feel like with those older tracks, like what to do, which line will move the best. But as for the new build with that track, it's going to be unpredictable because now there are a few different things probably you guys saw during the race, and I noticed it. I noticed it before the race even started. It's going to be interesting. I'm not sure if tires will matter because I know on Daytona 08, tire wear used to be a thing where back on the old tire model where you would you'd have to take tires at least once in the race or maybe twice, and now we have this halfway caution. And we might have others in between. I know my strategy usually when it comes to that, and I don't really like to take tires a lot during the race, but I don't know what the tire wear is like with this new build. I haven't run it enough to know. That could be a factor. There's gonna be a lot, but I'm feeling good about it. I don't know how far back I am of Lucas, but I know I closed in a significant amount. So I'm giving myself a shot at least, and that's really all I could ask for.
Well, Brandon, to kind of expand on that a bit, to answer 2 questions, you did lead the most laps tonight with 34. And you and Nick closed a little bit, 17, 18 apiece back there. So close that gap going into the final week. And something I want to touch on because you just brought up the tire model being a bit different now. We're noticing that guys seem to be a little bit more bouncy, especially the later run you got on that tri-oval, maybe into the corners a bit. You said you had got enough time with it, but do you feel like that was a bit of a factor? And is that something that you're kind of thinking about now going into next week with Daytona 08?
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, during the race, I was noticing it a lot, especially when I was pinched down on the bottom. I felt the air more, and it's kind of weird to say that, but I kind of felt the air more than I did on the old build. I was, and a lot of guys were doing it where we weren't able to, run in a straight line. We were kind of moving around, and I don't really think that was just us swerving. I just think the air kind of was taking us that way. It's kind of realistic, I guess. But it's an interesting factor, especially going to Daytona 08 now with a bumpy track like that. I know there was last season, or I don't know if it was last season or earlier this season, where our setup was having us, kind of swerve a little bit, and that wasn't really the build. That was just kind of the setup the way it was. But now, with the way the air is, it might be that way, which could be interesting for the racing. Especially how much those cars get shoved around with the bumps. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't think we'll see much of a different race compared to what we've seen there. The past couple of races in this series, I think it'll still be, we'll still see 2 wide. We'll still see both lanes work. It won't be, 1 lane dominant. But it's going to be interesting for sure. I'm like I said before, I'm looking forward to it. All I know is that I got to go out there and do what I did this week. Really lead the most laps, win the race. Unfortunately, I got to hope for some bad luck for Lucas.
Right.
Nick, but it's going to be exciting. I'll tell you that.
It certainly is. It's exciting for us to get ready for that final race. But Brandon, before we let you go, the floor's yours for any shout-outs.
First of all, I got to thank my teammates at Grid Esports. They're always great. Team owner Kyle Dagger, as always, we've put together a great group. We got another 3 months for Road to Pro. That's what we're gearing towards. Schedule just came out the other day. Format came out. So we're looking forward to it. I got to thank everybody that helped me tonight. I got to thank Connor Horn. He pushed me on those last 2 laps. I know his truck was a little bit damaged, but he tried his best, and ultimately it was enough. I got to thank Robbie and Lucas for the great series we got here. Again, I've been racing this 3 seasons now, and I haven't missed a race yet. So I love racing this series. It's fun. It's, getaway. Great group of guys, and I got to thank you guys for putting on the great broadcast as you have all season. Looking forward to one last time this season at least. Hopefully we can take home the championship. Would be great. I know I got a little bit of ways to go, but anything can happen, as we saw tonight. So.
Yeah, I mean, tonight, Brandon, we got to see you got the skill, you had the luck for the win tonight. We'll see if that carries forward into next week. That's Brandon Hoff in the 9 machine and the Grits machine trying to go for the championship. The win tonight helps dramatically. Good luck next week there, Brandon.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Tyler, as we're starting up on the wind down, this is going to be a wild end to this series for these drivers, as the championship is extremely close between a lot of these machines.
Yeah, and I think it's going to set up for a fantastic finale next week. I mean, Daytona 08, that configuration, we saw the drama the first time there. Throw on all the intensity of a championship finale on top of that. It's going to get hectic. It's going to get wild. Guys are still going to be trying to figure out this new model of everything. And I think we saw a kind of preview tonight, even, for the guys that mathematically might quite be out of it going into next week. They're not going to care. They're going to say, hey, I'm going to go for that final win of the season and put it all on the line. So things are going to get even tighter. It's just going to be a mix for chaos. And expect nothing less for the series, though. It's been fantastic all season long. These guys have just been duking it out left and right. And, boy, I cannot wait.
It certainly is going to be exciting. One more race left in the SARG Superspeedway series for these truck guys, and it's been a blast to watch them all season long. Lucas Cram's going to be leading the charge, but he's got a lot of hungry drivers behind him of Nick Olson and Brandon Hoff, who just won here today. Can't wait to see it. Like you said there, Tyler, it's going to be at the Daytona 2008 configuration, and excitement to be seen. We've seen almost every single week. The finishes to these races have been wild. It's been crazy, and it's only going to ramp up more from here. Excited to see all the action go down. Tyler, like always, thanks for being up in the booth.
And like always, as I say, you make me look a lot better than I am, Sam, so I appreciate it.
It is always a blast to be in the booth with you, Tyler, and we're excited for more Flatout Racing Network broadcasts to be seen throughout the week. Tomorrow night, it's going to be for the RTG Rally Challenge for the NR side of things. More Superspeedway racing, and it's exciting to see how those drivers are going to continue. But for here tonight, my name is Sam Dyer. With me was Tyler Riggs. You got to watch another presentation of the Flatout Racing Network. Getting to see some more Superspeedway racing next week. It's going to be the finale. Who's going to get it done there for the final at Daytona 2008 200. It's exciting to see how this season's going to come to an end. Who's going to get it? Is it going to be Lucas Cram, Nick Olson, Brandon Hoff, or will someone else sneak out a lucky win? Have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you next week.